This is the Above Average Podcast, and you are listening because you want an above average life.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Above Average Podcast, the podcast where we talk to above average people about their above average lives. Now, as you can tell, we're back in the Mort studio today, if you're watching this online. I'm super excited to have my guest today. We've been trying to make it happen for a while. It's been months, but it's finally here. My guest today is a former solicitor turned entrepreneur, mother of two, and the incredible CEO of Unstoppable. Please welcome Lesley Mort to the show. How are you, Lesley?
Thank you very much. I'm great. Yes, like you say, we've been trying to get this organised for nearly a year now, I think. So
I know. Well, I was supposed to have you on before Paul, and then it ended up swapping the other way around. So I've had to change a few of the questions around that I had for you as well, because it makes sense. But I always try and take my guests, first of all, back to sort of their childhoods, because it gives everyone that listens a more clear idea of where you've come from and versus who you are now and the change. So take me back to sort of your sort of high school. Have you changed much? What kind of person were you like back then?
Oh, high school. Crikey. South Shields, my comprehensive school was an experience, don't get us wrong. I suppose comp was a challenge, I suppose, for me a little bit. Well, I didn't feel like that at the time. It just felt like that was the life. Yeah. But looking back now, it was brutal. But character building, I suppose.
What's described as brutal?
I just feel like, I don't know whether it's the same for all girls, but I don't know. It was like survive the things you had to do to get through my comprehensive school. I mean, like looking back, the fakeness of people, and the keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
It was that kind of knife in the back, right? That
kind of thing. But like I say, character building. Still got a lot of friends from that time as well. So not kind of horrendous, but definitely learned some lessons and life lessons going through comp.
It's horrendous compared to most people's experiences. Probably normal for anyone around South Shields area.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. So my two kids, Nina's in year 6 now, going into comp.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you've brought this up, because I'm kind of thinking there's a school out the area she quite likes to go to. Mm-hmm. She would quite like to go to, which is a smaller class, but half of us thinks it's like you learn a lot of life lessons going through that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's I think it's good for, in some ways, good for kids if they're resilient enough to kind of be able to deal with it.
Do you think Nina is?
Nina definitely is resilient enough. I mean, but I think it's our duty as parents to kind of make them resilient and kind of teach them how to deal with those kind of situations. Because let's be honest, in life, that's the kind of things that you have to deal with. People talk about homeschooling, and I was talking to a friend who said, was talking about homeschooling kids, and I was talking about the social aspect of going to school and how I feel like that's important. And she was saying, but they go to classes and they play out with their friends. But I think there's something very important about learning how to deal with people that you can't get away with. Like, for example, when you're at school and you're stuck in a classroom. Yeah. If there's someone you don't like, you still have to spend your days and you still have to learn how to deal with that person. And I think that's kind of lessons like that, in social lessons like that, I think are very important. And that's definitely something that I learned from my time in school.
Well, it's funny because in comparison, my school was like, it was sort of like, there was 3 main schools around my area. There was, I'm just going to name them. There was Hooker Gate, which was like the roughest one. There was Wickham, which I went to, and then there was St. Thomas More, which was looked at like all the religious kids went there, and all the rich people went there, kind of thing. And I was like in the middle ground, so it wasn't rough, but it was still like I had to like try and fit in, and I was always the quiet one. Like I was never, I was the one that got pushed around, and to be fair, I think I credit a lot of that with why I'm able to speak so well now and do a lot of things is because my sort of voice was silenced in school, or at least I felt like it was. Yeah. It might not necessarily be the case, but I felt like it was. And then now I do all this, and I always think in the back of my mind, I'm always remembering that little shy kid. Yeah. And it's just interesting to see how things have changed. So So what kind of way do you think you've changed like the most since that? What was the biggest impact that's had on you? Having to fight to survive, like Hunger Games style in school.
Yeah, I feel like I was a people pleaser a lot back then, and that I probably didn't. I mean, I'm saying I didn't stand up for myself. I did stand. I actually ended up getting suspended when I was at school for fighting because I had no alternative. Like, and that sounds weird. I bet you're laughing at that and didn't expect us to say that. I was in all the top sets, and I was some might class us as a SWAT.
Yeah.
But there was times where I had to like defend myself, and I remember going through a phase of about 6 months where there was just a particular group of girls, who just made me life hell. And I went home at lunchtime and said, "Mum, I'm going to have a fight today." And my mum was like, "Well, you know, like," and it wasn't that I was a troublemaker, but I had to stand up for myself.
Yeah.
And I went back to school and I had a fight, and then obviously the trouble stopped.
Yeah. Who won?
Me.
Yes.
I wasn't scared of having a fight. I was scared of getting into trouble for having the fight. And as soon as I had my mum on board and I told her that I was going to have to do that, then I wasn't even worried about that. But I suppose going through comp, the fight to be accepted, I think, where you just want to be in with the popular people or just kind of not in with the people who are getting picked on at the very least. Now I feel like I definitely kind of am not like that. I am me. Take it as I am, and if you don't like it, kind of fuck off.
Yeah.
I try to be like that. It's everyone gets drawn in a little bit in the fight to be accepted.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely lot less like that than I was when I was at school.
Yeah. Did that mindset come back up when you started making content and things like that? Did that creep in again, like that, and want to be accepted? Because it's quite hard when you're making content to not sort of go, oh well, if I say this, people might not like it. Like,
I'm not actually. I don't know what it is about content that I don't like doing, but it's not that. I just find the pressure to have something relevant to say all the time hard with content. I often have I don't know whether this comes from my childhood maybe, but I kind of feel like whatever I've got to say has already been said. That's what I struggle with content. And I know that I just feel like whenever, all information's regurgitated, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
But sometimes I feel like when I'm creating content, I'm like, well, everyone knows this. So that's what I stumble across when I'm making content. And I suppose not everyone does know it. But in my head, I'm like, well, everyone knows this and everyone knows that. And if you've read that book, you know this. And then I go down a rabbit hole of, well, I've got nothing new or original to say. And that's what that kind of holds us back from posting content, I think. Not the need to be accepted.
Not the judgment. Yeah. It's like they used to say in school, just write it in your own words. Like there's a meme going around at the minute, and it's like he died in 1995 or something, and it's like in 1995 he died. It's like just flipping it words around a little bit. Yeah. But you are right though, it is really hard to write. Like I struggle with this, and I think that's why I went to a podcast format instead of the usual motivational videos, because I felt like I was just searching for something that someone else had said and then trying to make a 10-minute video out of it. Yeah. Whereas with this, it's like you talk about your own experiences.
It's like authentic, isn't it? It's a conversation and it's real rather than just trying to come up with a punchline that someone's going to not scroll past.
Oh God, yeah, clickbait. I'm going to clickbait all of these reels. I'm going to cut this as well. Yeah. I think I've got one on TikTok that just blew up recently, which was like not showering so I could gamble. And it was like that one blew up for some reason. I was like, okay, I'll just go with it. You know what I mean? I'm selling my soul to the devil for clicks and views. Yeah. So the next thing I want to talk about was you studied law at BPP Law School.
I did. How did you know that? Oh, right. Okay. I was like, where have you been?
LinkedIn. LinkedIn. Yeah. So I've never interviewed a lawyer before. Okay. So I'm just curious, like, what was the lead up to you working in that sector? Like, was it something you always had in your mind? Like, where did that come from?
So this is going to sound really pathetic, but I used to watch Ally McBeal. You're probably not even old enough to know what Ally McBeal is.
No, I don't know the name, no.
But it was like it was a TV series where she was a lawyer and she always looked amazing in her suit, and that's where that came from.
You just want to look good in a suit,
I want to be like Ally McBeal. So that's where it came from originally. When I left school, I actually got a modern apprenticeship with Northumbria Police, and I wanted to be in the police.
Right.
But typical of me, I was impatient. You couldn't be in the police until you were 19. I don't know if it's still the same, but at that stage you had to be 19 to be in the police, and I was obviously 16 when I left school.
Yeah.
So I got a modern apprenticeship working in the police station, Market Street Police Station in Newcastle, and it sounded like a really amazing job. And the reality was I spent all day photocopying, and I got sick of it and bored of it. Because I'm just that kind of, I'm always looking for the next thing. Like, I always feel like this isn't challenging enough. I need to be doing something else. So, like, but needless to say, after 3 weeks of photocopying, I can still remember now. It was like 7 pink copies, 4 blue. It was the court, the files for the court, for the jurors and stuff.
And that's never left you, that system.
And I just got bored of it, and so I thought, I can't do this for another 3 years until I'm ready to join the police. So then I got a job as a office junior in a solicitor's and started doing studying law part-time. And I actually did whole of my law degree and all of my law studies part-time while I was working in a solicitor's.
Wow.
I used to go to college twice a week when I was doing my A-levels, and then I used to go to uni every other weekend so I used to work all week, and then I used to get on the National Express bus, because it was only £12.50 and I couldn't afford a train, down to Leeds and study all week. I used to come home at 9 o'clock all weekend. I used to come home at 9 o'clock Sunday night and be back at work, and I used to do that while I was studying law.
How long did you do that for? Sorry, how long was
3
that?
years.
You did that for 3? Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. And then as soon as I qualified, I handed me notice in, and I haven't done it since. Well, actually, I was pregnant with Max. I qualified when I was 26, 27. I'd been qualified for about 6 months, fell pregnant with Max, and then handed me notice in and never went back. So it's typical. Like, I knew kind of towards the end that I was not loving what I was doing.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like a good opportunity, I suppose, to kind of, it's funny, isn't it? It's like the sunken cost fallacy or whatever it is, where like you feel like you've invested so much in it, you just keep on going and keep on going.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot during that time. Really opened my eyes to the world, because when you study law, you have to do different seats in different areas of law. So I did childcare. There was some childcare cases where they were getting, obviously, social services were taking kids off them, and that was really upsetting, especially when you're only young, 21, didn't know things like that happened. So I'm always forever grateful for all of the. I mean, I did 6 months in the criminal. So I did some of the criminal stuff. I saw blew me mind.
Anything you can name?
Well,
legally.
So what put us on? So obviously, like I said, I wanted to be in the police, and then I thought that I would love criminal law. What put us off going any further with criminal law is I got stuck as a court clerk, which is the person who sits behind the barrister in the Crown Court. So the barrister talks to the judge in a Crown Court. Yeah. Solicitor sits behind and takes notes. And I got stuck taking notes behind the barrister in a Crown Court case, which went on for 6 weeks, and it was about stolen car parts, and I literally wanted to die. It was like, here's a video of a gearbox, which was, I was literally, Jesus. if this is criminal law, I don't want to do it anymore.
Did you feel guilty because you secretly wanted like a serial killer?
I did, yeah. I'm still obsessed with true crime now. Like, I literally I watch all of everything that comes up on Netflix. I'm like, there's a new serial killer one. I love it, but that's the reality. Is that's not really what it's like.
Do you ever think now, because you've watched all these things, you could get away with murder?
Oh, me and Kath joke about it all the time. We talk about how we would dispose of a body, and Paul knows now how we would do it. So if there's ever a body found, you'll know it's either me or Kath by the method of disposal.
Did you watch Breaking Bad as well?
Yes.
Did you see when they're doing the bathtub?
I'm like, with this acid. Yeah.
Yep,
Jeffrey Dahmer did that as well. He had him in.
Yeah, I watched that new Dahmer one that came out a while back. That's sick. Yeah. But that's kind of what you hope for when you're in the courtroom, isn't it? You're like, bring in Jeffrey Dahmer. Come on, let's bring him.
Not the gearboxes. And he has a stolen.
So how many times did you do the court experience? Was it just that 6 weeks of doing the gearbox?
I've been to court quite a lot. You had to, when I was training to be a lawyer, I could only sit behind a barrister because you have to have advocacy rights, which you don't get until you're fully qualified.
Right.
But I used to sit behind a barrister a lot in court on all sorts of different cases. I actually once went to the Old Bailey as well, which was a really good experience.
Nice.
That was when someone was trying to whip off to Saudi with his kids, and it was for an injunction. Like, loads of really good experiences for life in general, which I'm really grateful for. have kind of set us up for what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't go back to it.
No. Is it like it is on TV, or is it a little bit like dumbed down?
So I used to get really nervous going to court, and I remember one time I forgot to stand up when you're supposed to stand up when you're talking to the judge, and I forgot to stand up when I was talking to the judge, and I got into trouble for that. Let's just say it's all a little bit pompous, though, isn't it? It's all a little bit.
All the wigs and the robes and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and I get it, but it always used to be. I just used to get a little bit nervous if I was ever talking to the judge. I was just like, can you imagine if I said? And you've got a client there, and you're trying to do your best for your client, and you don't want to fuck it up, and particularly so towards the end of my legal career, I did for years. I did conveyancing, which is just buying and selling property. I used to love, actually, still now look at flats and invest. I would buy that and invest in that, and still got interested in property. But when the property market crashed in like 2009, I ended up doing litigation, which is basically suing people. And what I realised was I wasn't cut out for that kind of like, you have to be hard and you have to be kind of confrontational and stuff to do litigation, and I realised that just wasn't in my skill set. And I used to be like, why is it being so horrible? It was my boss used
We've got to be really cool.
No, that's his job. He's trying to win the court case, and I was like, he's being horrible. So I realised that I wasn't cut out for litigation, and that's kind of what I was doing when I fell pregnant with Max, and why I decided I was never going to go back. But the reality is, it was also I used to go to work sometimes 7:30 in the morning, not get home till 9 o'clock at night. And didn't really work for having a family and having
That's harsh hours. That is harsh hours, yeah.
When you're young,
you can handle it, yeah.
and you're passionate about it. Like, I used to love it for a while. I used to work in the centre in Newcastle, and we used to go, I literally just lived at work. We used to finish work on a Friday night and used to go out drinking, and you loved it. But then as you get older, your lifestyle changes, doesn't it? And it just didn't fit in with my lifestyle anymore. So yeah, love what I'm doing now.
Fantastic, which we will get into. Yes. Don't worry. We will definitely get into what you do now. So you obviously must have met Paul during this time in the...
I was actually 14 when I met Paul.
You were 14 when you met Paul. So I couldn't actually find out how you guys met, and I didn't ask Paul this, so I'm going to ask you guys. Okay. So what's the story about you guys?
So Paul used to be a glass collector in Venue, which is have you heard of Venue?
I know the name.
Pub in South Shields.
Right. Still going?
It's not called that anymore.
Right,
don't know what it's called.
Right, cool.
But it used to be the place that everyone used to go. I mean, literally Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, South Shields used to be absolutely jumping. Yeah. It's dead now. But when Paul used to be a glass collector. He wasn't 18 because he wasn't old enough to work behind the bar. Yeah. But he must have been 16. And he used to collect the glasses in Venue. And I went into Venue at 14-year-old. You could do that in those days, though. Like,
no fake ID or anything?
No fake ID, no nothing. And it was regular. I used to go out every weekend when I was 14. I used to have my £10 pocket money. I used to have two halves of cider and
£10 pocket. That wouldn't even get you a pint now.
No, I know. Well, it was like £1 a drink or something. I used to have 2 halves of cider and black. Honestly, like, when I look back now, not that I'm encouraging underage drinking, but so I used to go out every weekend, and Paul's friends were friends with my brother's friends, and we just kind of moved in the same circles. And then eventually, I remember it was one New Year's Eve. I don't know if I should say this on here, but he asked us for my phone number, and I gave him my phone number. It was before mobile phones as well, because
this is landline,
right? My landline phone number, and I said, "Don't ring us until next week because I'm grounded." I don't know how I was grounded because I was clearly out, but it was New Year's Eve because I had a tattoo. I had a tattoo when I was 14.
Right. Well, did your friend do that, or did you get it like just?
No, it was
different times, man. Different times.
It was, honestly. And my mum had found me tattoo, so I was like, "Don't ring until next week because I'm grounded and I'll get into trouble if a boy rings." And that was it. And then he didn't ring until like the day after I told him to ring, and then we went out to Newcastle and he took us to McDonald's on my first date. There you go. How romantic.
This is amazing. And I know I've seen some of the places you guys have eaten now. You've come a long way. What was it, like the raby hunting places like that, like the good places?
Yeah,
Jesus.
McDonald's for our first date.
Nice. Nuggets on the first date. That's always a good one.
Happy meal.
I'd love to hear. I know. I'd love to. You both have a little toy and you're like, toys were so much better and Happy Meals better than I bet. But it's funny. I would love to have asked him. I should have asked him about his version of this story. Yeah. He might have told it a bit differently. So you guys together ever since? Just like
so we split up for a little while when I was like 20, 21. I was down in Leeds a lot and Paul was doing all sorts of things. And just for about 18 months we kind of drifted apart a little bit, but then realised that we definitely wanted to be together, got back together and never been together ever since.
Nice. Did you get involved much in his sort of early business ventures at all? Were you always under the surface or were you just like...
So I've always done his accounts.
You've always done his accounts, right?
Since he was like a PT when he was like 18.
Yeah.
I've always done his accounts because numbers has never been his thing. I also used to do I've always done his accounts. I've always done kind of organisational things. So for example, like when he was doing boot camps, he would do like, you know, like a team he'd do like a night out or an event or something like that. And I'd always organise all of that kind of stuff. And then kind of just gradually, I've done a little bit more for him. And then I used to help him with like, not that he didn't have actually staff in those days, but he would, I would help him find people who could help, who could do certain
like
things.
Freelance people and
that kind of thing. And then just gradually, I actually got into working with Paul, kind of full time, because he was having problems with somebody who was working for him freelance, and he was like, I need to get rid of this guy, but I don't have anyone who can. I can't get rid of him because I need someone to do the stuff that he's doing. So I kind of managed him out in terms of, I was like, can you give us a list of things that you're doing? Just so we can keep on track. And then I learned the list of things that he was doing. I learned how to do myself, and I did little SOPs for them so that I could find somebody else to do them. And that was like took up like 6 months worth. And then I ended up kind of in full time after that.
Just weaning him out slowly.
That's
such a good plan. Don't fire him. Just take his job slowly away from him. Like death by 1,000 cuts. That's all that was.
It sounds a little bit sneaky at looking back, but to be fair, there was issues and we wouldn't have done it. If it was working, we wouldn't have done it.
Well, yeah, you got to do what you got to do, especially in business. You can't just be like too nicey in business, can you?
So that's how I ended up working for Paul, kind of full time. I did that while Max was tiny. He was a little baby. I remember holding him on my knee and trying to do all this stuff. And I never intended on doing all of them things for the long term, but I thought I need to understand what these like kind of amending websites and dates and launch and like automations and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Still, like it's never something that I've intended on doing, but I feel like if you're going to take on staff, you kind of need to understand the process. And how do you know if somebody's doing a good job if you don't really know what it is?
Yeah, true.
So that's how I ended up working with Paul full time, and then we've just kind of grown from there. And I've used my corporate background to kind of help grow the business. What's
interesting about that is it's because I said this to Paul as well, and I'd love to get your take on it as well, because I said to him, many husbands, wives, their work is kind of separate to obviously their home life. They might bring a little bit of work home, but they like that separation between, we're not colleagues, we're husband and wife. Do you know what I mean? So was there any bumps in the road when you first came in full time to the office? Was there any hurdles to go over, or did you just work with that synergy because you built up for so long?
I feel like we've kind of got kind of a mutual understanding of like we talk about positive things at home. Like if we're excited about things, we'll talk about it. Oh, I can't wait for this event. Like, we'll talk about positive things to do with work at home.
Yeah.
But we have this kind of mutual understanding where we don't moan at each other at home. At home, like if we've got problems, we keep them. Keep it for when we're at work. We'll keep it for the meeting. Like we have meetings, which sounds really weird, but we have meetings about work. So try and have like draw a line between home life and work life, and like we'll leave here on a Friday and we're like forget about it until we do planning together on a Sunday. But in general, it doesn't merge. It doesn't cross lines. And like I say, we do sometimes say like, oh, have you seen that event? Shall we book that event? Which is work related.
But it's exciting
stuff. But in general, we try and not like, even if I see a problem in my inbox or something like that, I'll not mention it, because if it's on my mind, he just doesn't need to be on his mind. I try and shield him from stuff in the same way that he probably tries and shields me from stuff in my personal life, and then keep that until we're in the office. I think having an office definitely helps. I think during COVID, while people were struggling, was because they were living and working in the same place.
Oh God, I'd love to see the statistics on how many relationships just broke down completely because of that. 100%.
But because I can step out here and I feel like I'm not at work anymore. That definitely helps. And even during COVID, we used to bring the kids here, and these kids used to do their homework here.
That's good. Well, if you got your own office, you might as well.
We used to come to work, and the kids used to do the homework, and then we used to go home, and then because the separation, I think, is really important for your mental health. 100%.
Oh yeah. So obviously, I've had a few coaching sessions with you and Paul now, both at the same time, and from what I've seen anyway, my personal experience, it's like chalk and cheese. There's two very different dynamics going on. He's very much like, he sings to himself, runs around the room, you know what I mean? He's not afraid to just stand there and shout. Whereas I've seen you try and get stuff done, and you're like trying to wait for him to finish his erratic movements, and then you're like, Paul, sit down, shut up. Like, how have you managed to like co-inhabit this? Is there any other, obviously I know you said boundaries at home and stuff. What's the boundaries like at work? Like, is there anything that you're just like, you have to say to him, Paul, don't do this?
Obviously we've been together since I was 14. I know him better than he knows himself. So I know how to communicate with him now. Bullet points. If I send him an email, it's like, I need to know X, Y, and Z. He doesn't like long sentences. He will not read it. Like, just like one word, yes or no answers. Like, we used to do a Monday meeting in here with the staff, and it lasts about 2 hours. He now only comes in for the first 15 minutes. So we need to be prepared for that. So I was like, if you need to ask Paul anything, you need to have the question. You need to think about what you need from Paul before the meeting, and you need to have the questions ready, and you need to just fire them so that you can say yes or no. Like, we don't need long discussions. We don't need, like, you just need to go yes, yes, yes. If you need a video from him, you need to tell him what he needs. His attention span is really, and he gets agitated and like he's up and down, and
I've noticed.
It drives me insane. Actually, Nina's exactly the same. She kind of sits still. She's like a fidgety kind of the same as him. I think it might be ADHD, but I'm not labeling things. I just know how to deal with him now. He's even so much as I can read his mood when he walks in, and if I can feel I don't know whether other people can feel like that off their I can feel
just a
it.
vibe.
He doesn't have to say anything, and I can know what kind of mood he's in, and I can know I'll hold that. If it's a problem, I'll hold that. He's not in the mood for that problem. It's just I know him so well now. I just know how to deal with him. I don't think he knows me well. He doesn't give a shit about my feelings.
Oh, we'll cut that out of the podcast.
He doesn't though, but because I suppose maybe it's I've got such an awareness of his mood, of his history and his bipolar. And like, for a long time I used to tread on eggshells with him a lot. I don't so much now, but I can read his mood so much. It's just off the history. Like, I know what kind of mood he's in, and I'm like, right, well, I know how to deal with him today.
It's interesting that, because a lot of the relationship dynamics that, obviously, you know, I've had people on who've spoke about this in the past, and one of the interesting things is, like, obviously there's always one person sort of takes the lead, one person sort of sits back. With you and Paul, it kind of seems like you've got this very good, you know what you're both good at, and you both share that equally. And is that right? Was that set from the get-go, or did you just fall into that? Like,
well, I think it's something that we've just kind of carved out as we've gone, but now we're very aware of, like, so I'm like, that's yours, like marketing, sales, videos, all of that. I'm happy. I know he's better than that at me. Don't try and pretend to not be. I'm just like, you do what you think you need to do, and then then in the same respect, he knows that he's unorganized as fuck. And he'll just say, so he'll actually say, I need you to I need you to organise some time in my calendar to do X, Y, and Z, or like, we just know what each other are good at, and we just let. I think that's why it works so well as well, because I think sometimes there's if you're too similar, there's friction, and there's like, because we're so chalk and cheese, we're willing to kind of step back from. I'm not good at that, so I'm happy. But if you're both good at marketing, for example, you both think you've got the best idea, there could be friction. But I'm just like, I'm cool with you taking the lead on that, and he's cool with me taking the lead.
There's no egos involved in it.
No, sometimes Paul ego gets in the right. But I'm saying he hasn't. Not necessarily. That sounded shit, didn't it? But sometimes if I question him about, I'm like, if I question him about the content of a video or something like that, he's like, do you think that was shit? Like,
just straight to the point. Yeah. Like, do you have any feedback? He's like, do you think that's shit? Like that.
Yeah. But I think it's good to have somebody who will question you as well. Sometimes I think in business, particularly when you're the business owner or the boss, nobody questions you. I think that can lead to some really bad decisions.
100%. Surrounded by yes men,
Yeah. I think that's why it's important to kind of be in a group of peers as well, to run things by. Like, we've got mentors as well. Paul's obviously a mentor, but we've got our own mentors because sometimes you can't see things clearly. You just kind of, and I think external points of view where they're not emotionally attached to the outcome is really important, I think.
Well, obviously you've built such a successful business here. One of the things that it's led you to have is such an incredibly large network. And one of the people that you have in your network is Ollie Ollerton from the SAS Who Dares Wins. And you and Paul took was it the Unstoppable guys, the Alliance guys? I'm not sure who. You took them all through the fan dance.
Yes, and the Lazy Ladies as well.
Yes, yeah. So you had. So describe for anyone listening who doesn't have a clue what the fan dance is, because it's not as lovely as it sounds. What is the fan dance, and how did that come about?
So the fan dance is the original SAS selection route, which is a giant mountain in Wales, which is all I can describe it as. Where, I mean, actually, when we were doing the fan dance with Ollie Ollerton, the SAS were actually on the selection route that day. They were set off earlier than us, and they were coming back as we were setting off.
Did you just see their faces coming back, like all sweating and
they were
blood?
Running and stuff, and I was thinking,
Jesus.
So it took me 5 hours. And I'm really proud because I did it with a full SAS weight on, which none of the other girls did, and a lot of the men didn't as well. And it was physically the hardest thing that I've ever done. And I didn't realise at the time I was being all Billy Big Balls. See, when I signed, I was like, I'm doing it with a full weight, because if I wanted to be in the SAS, I'd have to do the full weight, regardless of what. It was a bit like girl power. Regardless of whether it's a girl or a boy, I still have to be able to carry this weight. I'm going to do it with a full weight. And then I started training for it, and I thought, holy shit, this is a lot of weight.
Yeah. What's the full weight? Is it like 25 kilograms, something like that?
35.
35.
And I didn't realise so much. Well, obviously the weight's heavy, but then the impact on your knees. I'm old, now, and like my hips and my knees and my feet, and
Is that you having an excuse for why you didn't train hard enough?
No, but I mean, so it was physically one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I remember there's this thing called Jacob's Ladder when you get to the top of Jacob's Ladder. So it's basically really steep up one side of the mountain, and it's like a ladder rather than a climb. It's like,
so you're on your hands and knees, kind of thing. Right.
And it's literally like that with the weight on the back. And I was literally at one stage doing 3 steps at a time and stopping, 3 steps at a time, stopping. And mentally, that was one of the toughest things that I've ever done, getting to the top. And then I got to the top. And I don't know what happened, whether it was just my imagination, but as I was walking up Jacob's Ladder, the sun was shining. I got to the top, and it was like I had stepped into hell. Like, it literally started, the sky went black, it started lashing with rain, and I just stood at the top and cried. Everyone disappeared, so there was loads of people behind us when I was coming up Jacob's Ladder, and I got to the top, there was nobody there, and I just stood and cried on my own.
Wow.
I didn't have a jacket on, so I had to take me. Oh, honestly, and I'll never forget getting to the top of Jacob's ladder, and I thought I would feel elated, and I just cried, not a happy cry. I was just like, I'm at the top, and it's pissing down with rain, and I'm freezing. And I just felt so sorry.
And I've got to go back down.
Yeah, I felt so sorry for myself. It's just I just found it really weird, where when you get to when you reach something that you've been trying to aim towards, and you think it's never really quite as good as you expect it to be, is it?
Yeah.
I mean, looking back now, I'm really proud that I did it. But I thought I'd be like, yeah, I'm at the top. And I was just feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah. Was it different? I'm just imagining you like the Shawshank Redemption when he comes through and it's all raining, he's tunneled through, he's like, ah.
It was like that.
That's how I imagine it.
It was pitch black. It was lashing. Like, I've got a photo of me. I took a selfie because I'm having a selfie at the top of the penny fan.
Yeah, obviously.
And I'm literally look like I've been dragged through a hedge. But yeah, it was an experience. Like I say, one of the toughest things physically that I've ever done.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What's the official SAS time like to make it into the SAS?
I think it's like under 3 hours, and it took me 5.
Were any of the guys you took up under the time? Like, would any of them be accepted?
I don't know. There was a couple that were really fat. So there was one DS, which is, I don't know what that means, but it's an army man.
Do you know what I should know? Because I've watched like 6 seasons of the show. I should know. Yeah.
But one of the DS. So we did it with Ollie Ollerton's team.
Mm-hmm.
Breakpoint they're called, I think. He had loads of DSs that took what up. One of the DSs literally ran and said, "I'm going to do it in SAS time if you want to follow us." And I think there was about 4 or 5 tried to. I don't know whether any of them actually did it. But yeah, it's tough. Glad I've done it. Don't know if I'd ever try and do it again.
So you don't recommend?
Definitely
don't recommend.
No, I mean, all of the things that I've done, definitely. I always say try everything once.
Mm-hmm.
Like we did a skydive not long ago in Dubai. I did that once. I did that the first time. I hated it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said I'd never do that again. And then Paul decided he wanted to do it in Dubai, and we did it. And liked it the second time, which is weird.
Well, it's. I have a question about that, but we'll jump on that now. I saw the picture of you doing the. Where did you do it in Peterlee by any chance?
We did it in Peterlee.
Yeah, because I saw the picture of you, and I've got the same picture because I did one in Peterlee.
Oh, did you?
And we're both wearing the same stupid orange cone hat, and I was like, I hate that. I got the pictures done, and I got the guy to jump out, and I was like, why did you make? Because I'd seen other people do it, and they didn't have. They were just in t-shirts and stuff. I had to wear, Michael Myers overalls and this orange cone. I was like, it's ridiculous, but. Obviously, going into a skydive, like what went through your head first of all?
So we did it because Paul was scared of heights and flying at the time, right? And I was like, "Come on, then we'll just do it." Like, honestly, I didn't think.
So it was your own fault.
It
then.
was my fault. I forced him to do it. I was like, got there. I was buzzing. I was excited about it. You get all your gear on. You go up in the aeroplane, and I was strapped to this guy, and I was honestly not scared. And isn't it funny how one thought can just totally, I went to say something to the guy that I was attached to and realised I didn't know his name. And I was like, shit, I'm about to jump out of the plane with a guy who I am hoping is going to do his job properly. And I don't even know his name. Wow. What the fuck am I doing? I was like, I don't even know what this guy's called. And I'm relying on him to save me life and to pull that thing and make sure that when you just spiral. Mm-hmm. And I thought, what the fuck am I doing? And I
is this whether you were like, oh, it's real?
Yeah, but it sparked from the fact that I didn't know what the guy was called. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, what am I doing? Like, I don't even know what this guy's name is, and I'm about to jump out of the plane and hope that he pulls the parachute. So until the parachute went up, I hated the whole thing. I think it was a control thing. I'm quite like to be in control of things, and I felt completely out of control. Once the parachute went up, loved it. Like, I was happy with that. Yeah. But I just hated that.
The build
up to it. And people do parachute jumps for the free fall, don't they? For the thrill of the free fall.
It's only like 30 seconds or something as well that you fall.
I hated that. I just get the fucking parachute up.
But you can't breathe as well, which is the worst part.
Yeah.
It's like you think you can just breathe through it. It's just hitting you so fast.
You so fast you can't take a breath.
It's crazy. I've seen the photos, and there's one that you took of me. Because
they're not flattering, are they?
They're
like
really
my
not,
cheeks
no.
are going a little bit.
Well, I was only like 19 at the time, and I was fresh out of college. You know what I mean? I had like greasy hair, spots, and that. You know what I mean? And I went for like at least 6 pisses before I went up in the air. I was like, I'm not having this on camera. You know, this wet patch on the overalls. You know? And I remember they load up the little plane, which doesn't look like it should fly.
No, and it is titchy inside, isn't
it? Yeah, well, there's no seats or anything. You just sit on the floor. And they got me in last, which means you're at the front of the plane, which means you're going first. Because I'd paid for the guy to jump out, so he needed to go obviously first, then we follow. So I've got these 2 girls who were from Ireland. I remember this. They were loving life. They were holding hands like, yeah, we're going to jump out, yeah. And then there was this guy who'd done it like for 30 odd years. He was just doing it for the shits and giggles. And then there was me, who was absolutely... There's a photo of me, I'm like this. You know what I mean? And I would look terrified, right? And he was like, when he pulled the cord as well, he was like, do you want to pull the things and like move around? I was like, absolutely not.
Oh.
Just get me down. Like, I trust you. You're the professional. I'll let you do it. Yeah. I would do it again, because obviously it's been nearly 10 years or something since I did it. So I'd definitely do it again, but I don't want one of them orange cones. I'll get better photos this time.
Yeah.
Well, one of the other things you did was you raised about $5,000 for SADS. Is that how you say it? So this was sudden arrhythmic death syndrome, which I'd never heard of before. But you raised it for, you did David Goggins 4x4x48.
I did, yes.
Which I was like, I had to Google it. I was like, what is this? So if anyone that doesn't know, it's running 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. So what's the story behind that?
So one of our dear friends, one of Paul's very good close friends, Stoney, died of a heart attack. He was the same age as Paul. That happened in, when was that? When did I do it? Maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah, about 3 years ago.
So the gym that I went to, Black Sheep, that's how I met Stoney at the gym at the time. But I mean, Paul, he was a barber. Paul used to get his hair cut from him and stuff. They did the Goggins 4x4, and I was like, I'm definitely doing that to raise money for this charity, because that's the sudden arrhythmic thing is the condition that Stoney had, and how he died of a heart attack. So another thing that I signed up for, not realising
the mental extremities,
so did that, and we raised a lot of money for charity. I've always actually been quite a good runner, long distance runner. Don't know how. School used to make us do the 800 meters. They used to take us to Moncton Stadium, because I used to go.
Sports day, isn't it?
Well, because you got out of lessons if you went to the. So I used to go. I used to do me 800 meters and then sit behind the shed and smoke me tabs.
So I could run, but then I'm going to blow up my lungs at the same time. Yeah.
So I don't know how, but it just must be a natural thing that I'm like long distance running. I'm quite good at. So I thought I'd be all right with that, but it was the lack of sleep, because obviously you have to get up in the middle of the night and run. The lack of sleep that I can remember hallucinating and stuff during that. I couldn't eat. My body, I think, had gone into shock. So you're running 4 miles, and then obviously you need to fuel it, but I just literally couldn't eat anything.
Yeah.
And I remember, so Paul did it at the same time, but he went an hour ahead of me, so that because we couldn't run in the middle of the night and leave the kids at home in the night and stuff. So I remember the second night, the last night, Paul's mate came and said, I'll go out with Lesley, Potsy. He said, I'll go out with Lesley in the middle of the night, so she's not running in the middle of the night on his own. Problem is, Potsy's done like Ironman and stuff, like he's really fit. And I remember doing me like 8 o'clock run and then going to bed and thinking, Potsy's coming in the middle of the night, and I was dreaming and I was hallucinating about, honestly, it was, and it must just, I think that must just be something that happens when you're physically like exhausted, really, and my body must have been in shock and I couldn't take on fuel. So again, out of all of the physical challenges I've done, I'd say fan dance was the hardest, and then the Goggins thing was the second hardest. And I think it was, but I mean, if you train for it, maybe not so much.
I love how this reoccurring theme of I'll sign up for this because it sounds cool, get everyone else involved, and then shit my pants when it comes to it because I'm unprepared.
I genuinely believe that you can probably physically get through way more than you think.
Yeah, agreed.
I think it's mental. People mentally think that they can't do it, Whereas I'm kind of the other way around. I just think I'll get through it somehow. And I think that your body can physically deal with more than you actually think. It's your mind that gives up before your body most of the time. And I'm quite a positive thing now. I'll figure it out.
Figure it out while I'm dying and throwing up along. Yeah, I'll work it out.
I'll figure it out. Again, so in December we're doing this thing in Marbella with the Alliance in Inner Circle Ladies. So it's called Mike's Gym, and it's the biggest assault course in Europe.
Wow, nice.
Haven't trained for that, and it's on the 8th of December.
So you've got just a little over a month now.
Yeah. So in my head, I was gonna do some, like, it's rope climbs and stuff like that.
Wow.
I don't know how to train for that.
Do
you know what I mean?
Good point. Yeah.
So I'll do some pull-ups, and I went out for a mile run yesterday.
I mean, it'd be great. A lot of grip strength, I'd imagine. So have you got them little like grip strength things? Is what you need.
Well, I've got wide grip things that I can put on dumbbells, but
yeah.
Well, I mean, you'll figure it out when I get there.
You'll wing it. I will have to interview you afterwards, see if you're like, yep, I just winged it. I made it through.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I love as well is obviously I spoke about Max and Nina briefly, but one thing I love is the example that you'll set to them.
Oh.
Did you ever set out to be this sort of role? Obviously, as a mother, you set out to be some sort of role model. But when you do all these things, do you think about the effect it's going to have on them? Is that a thought that comes in your head, or do you just do it and it just happens to be, a good thing for them?
So after I had my kids, and particularly as they've started to grow up and kind of watch what you do, it's definitely something that I think is important. And there's a lot of the way I live my life now is a lot to do with the example that I want to set for my kids. And sometimes the things that push us through difficult things are I need to show me kids that these kind of things are possible. For example, I never really want, and the coaching that I do and the business coaching that I do, I always put that off and thought, it's not necessary, it's not important now. I'm dealing with Unstoppable, and then it got to the point where I thought, how can I teach me kids to reach their potential if I'm not reaching my potential myself?
Yeah.
If I'm sitting in my comfort zone, not pushing, how can what kind of example am I setting to my kids? So a lot of the things that I do aren't necessarily because I think, I want to teach my kids to do charity fitness events, but I just think I just want to set an example in terms of how to live and how to push yourself.
Yeah.
And I don't do it in a pushy way. Like some of the things, for example, Max is so laid back, it frustrates the life out of us sometimes. I took him for a run at the weekend.
I saw that on your story, yeah.
And I was like, right, so we did 2 miles, and I was like, so next week we'll go out. So his last mile was really slow. I mean, I didn't say that to him because I'm obviously not trying to kind of shatter his confidence.
How are you, snail? Keep up, yeah.
But so I was like, well, next week we'll try and do that in 20 minutes. Why? Well, because then that's an improvement on. Well, why do I need? I'm not. Why do I have to have a goal? Like it frustrates me the life out of us that he's not more pushing to be better. Nina's always like that, and it's funny how different personalities can be naturally more ambitious, I would say, maybe.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, in general, I try and just kind of set an example to my kids to try and reach their potential, I suppose. And a lot of the travel and stuff that we do is because I want to expose them to different people, different environments.
Yes, yeah.
Different. I just want them to see how other people live, not necessarily people who are richer or more ambitious. Like we went to Thailand, and Thai people are so fucking happy and they haven't got anything.
Yeah.
And I want my kids to see that as well, so that they understand that actually money doesn't make happiness. It's like Thai people are so lovely to you. They're just say hello to you, and that's nothing to do with money. So I just kind of like my kids to see different cultures, different people, different environments, and just expose them to it so much that they think anything's possible.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, you can tell someone that comes from money and someone who grew up poor and then came into money. Do you know what I mean? You can see the difference in the way they act. You know, it's funny that you see. One thing I love talking about is how when you see pictures of like. They had pictures of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, and there's not a Gucci belt between them. Do you know what I mean? And it's like there's a difference between, you know, they're well cultured, well traveled. Whether or not you like what they've done with the world is another matter. But they're well traveled, they're well cultured. They've done a lot in their lifetime, and they don't try and always. They never showed on that person that they were rich. They never acted. As far as I can tell in interviews, they never spoke down to people because of their money. Do you know what I mean? So. You know, I'm not rich, for example, right? But I've met a lot of rich people, and you can definitely see the ones who are talking out of their money and the ones who are talking because they relate to you as someone who's trying to get ahead. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So one of the things that I hate and try is entitlement.
Yeah.
And I'd hate my kids to be entitled, and it just the lack of kind of ambition and just feeling the entitlement, and I think it is a problem in like younger people, particularly. I mean, I can remember when we were interviewing for Connor's job, I think it was, and just the kind of lack of kind of willingness to do what it takes to get somewhere, to put the work in, and just the entitlement. I fucking hate that. And the thought of my kids being like that kills us. Like, for example, Max spent nearly 800 quid on his PlayStation. Reckons he didn't do it on purpose. Reckons he didn't realise it was... but it was on FIFA cards. I don't know what they were, right? Yeah. So I was furious with him. And I made him pack envelopes and actually he had to fill the skip with while getting garden work
like
done.
A consequence to his actions. Yeah.
Well, I said to him, you know, if you were getting paid for that, so it took him all day to put this mud in the skip, and I was like, it still wouldn't be anywhere near 800 quid. If that was your job and as a labourer, you wouldn't get paid 800 quid for doing that. I don't want them to feel like money comes easily, and I want them to have a good work ethic. That's really important to us. That's something that comes from my dad. My dad's from Yorkshire. He's tight as fuck. He's a proper Yorkshireman. I remember when I was young and he wouldn't get fried rice at the Chinese because it was an extra 20p. He just had to have boiled rice. Do you know what I mean? And
my dad's like, as well, yeah.
That's how tight my dad is. And I take the piss out of him. But actually, I find it really valuable in terms of... just I'm not tight in any way, but just not being
you're aware, you're not just making it rain. You know what I mean?
And kind of that's important for my kids to understand that you need to work hard to get. It's like a value thing, isn't it? You have to give value out to get value back. You're not fucking entitled to it just because that's what you think.
Because some motivational speech on Instagram said so. I love that. My dad's the best example of this is my dad does not buy dairy milk mini rolls. He buys Dairy Fine mini rolls from Aldi as well. He gets like they're only like 50 pence cheaper, but it's just like he has that mindset of like just cut back, but he also works extremely hard. Right? And it's like he's done physical labor his whole life, and I think watching him do that, I'm like, he never made the most amount of money, but we never went without. We never struggled. And he was always, he would always work hard, and then he would come home and he would help me with whatever I needed. And I was like, that's the kind of, attitude that I would want to pass down to my kids as well when I have them. But where do you think the entitlement mindset comes from these days?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know. Do you think it's social media? Do you think Possibly. It's the fact that people see all of this stuff and think that it's easy to get, there's all this kind of I don't know, when we were kids it didn't feel attainable, did it? You didn't see the way the other half live so much.
You had magazines and stuff, but you didn't.
But it didn't feel as attainable maybe as it does nowadays. Now that can be a two-edged sword, I suppose, but I think people don't realise what it takes to get, they think that because they've got them that it's something that they're entitled to, or something that but aren't necessarily aware of how much work goes into it to get to that kind of wealth. I don't know if it's even just about wealth, though. The entitlement to me isn't even just about money. Like, I remember I was listening to the radio the other day and they were talking about, the ick thing that they talk about.
What people's icks and red flags.
And somebody said, what gives them the ick is people who have to go to work because it sounds like they're desperate for money. And I was like, what the fuck?
I hope no one's serious about that one. I really hope not.
I know, but I reckon, but it kind of is a little bit of there is a generational kind of thievery. There's a lot of young'uns that I can see that kind of thing in them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I know someone whose ick was men who run with backpacks on. Like the way you run with a backpack on, I was like, I get it. It looks weird, but is that really something that turns you off about someone? I was like, but I think you're right with social media as well. And one of the things that I always found interesting was, have you heard of Dunbar's number?
No.
So Dunbar's number is the idea that you can only remember 150 names and faces before your mind starts to jumble them up. You start to forget details about them.
Yes.
Yeah, and one of the things that's interesting was from where we come from in our little tribes, our mindset hasn't changed much. Yeah, we've got a different culture, but the way we're wired hasn't changed. And we were used to, you knew the town blacksmith. It was Dave, the town blacksmith. You knew the chef. You know what I mean? He was Brian, right? Now we've got such a vast, world to look at. We don't see Brian and Dave anymore. We see Gordon Ramsay as the chef.
Yes.
We see, the guy on TV who's making, what's that blacksmith show, who's carving all that.
Yeah.
We see them and we forget about the little things that you can make. It's now all about the bigger picture. Well, if you're not Ramsay, you're not a chef.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. You can be a great chef and no one needs to know your name. Mm. But we all want this fame, this glory. And because it's so, we're probably guilty of as well, as content creators. We put out reels and stuff like these. It's all professionally filmed.
Like a warped sense of reality a little bit, isn't it?
It is.
Like, I totally agree with,
Everyone's an influencer now. That's what it is.
I know. And it's scary because, Nina's 10. Whether or not, the whole young'uns on social media is a separate thing. There's positives and negatives, but Nina posts, she's got a private account, Nina posts, and it is part of her, it's just part of her life now. Whereas for me, it takes effort to think about what I'm going to post. Yeah. It's actually part of who she is. Mm-hmm. And for that generation, that's going to become, it's just part of, it's the same as watching the telly, reading it. It's just part of what is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's almost like she's living her life through, she's living her life through social media.
Yeah, I did find a video of Nina TV. I did find, I think it's you filming it as well. You're trying to hold you laughing at the same time.
But it's a great skill to have. And moving forward, and Max doing his homework with AI. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
What, have you got him on ChatGPT?
Yeah.
That's great.
He asked, he said, can I do this on, and I was like, not all the time, but I'm willing to have a play with ChatGPT so you know how it works. And that's a skill in itself. Being able to use AI to do your homework, or just being able to use your AI is probably a skill that's going to help him better than the actual answer to his homework.
Yeah, because it's not going to, I think in future, it's not going to be, show you working out, do all this. It's like, how fast did you get the answer? I think that's what we're going to, because we value convenience over anything else, convenience and speed. And I think that's the way work's going to go as well. Like, if you can, I think there's a great video circulated on this. I don't know if you've seen it. This is totally off topic of the questions. It's this guy who's talking about making a logo.
Right.
And he says, how much would you pay me per hour to do this? And it's like, well, if I can do it in half the time because I'm good, I'm being penalized by being charged by the hour. I was like, oh, yeah. So it was just like the different mindset of like, how fast can you do something versus how, like, because when I used to start making content, so I made content for people,
right?
And I did charge by the hour, but then I got faster and earned less money. I was like, this sucks. I'm not doing this. So I would, I didn't want to drag stuff out because I felt like I was taking the piss a little bit. Like, have you ever fell into that at all?
It's not actually. When I was solicitor, I used to charge by the hour.
Yeah,
I used to get ridiculous rates. Even when I was really young, I was getting my hourly rate was something like 180 quid an hour. I was chargeable at. I didn't get it in my back pocket. It went to my boss or the but I get that totally. Yeah, it's a weird one, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, and I think in the future, I mean, it's scary. The AI, what AI is going to be able to do. We were sitting in the office listening to the radio about AI, and I was like, yeah, but they won't be able to do this and they won't be able to do that. And Kath was like, it will.
Yeah.
So, for example, she was sitting packing envelopes doing a direct mail, please.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, they won't be able to do this. And I thought, and she said, they will, though. And I was like, but the machine,
the Terminators,
whatever it is, that it's going to be so expensive. A business like mine won't be able to afford the AI machine to do that. Yeah. But then I suppose if you're thinking in 20, 40, 80 years' time, when the machine will be, it's like when a computer first came out, isn't it?
Yep.
We couldn't all afford a computer when a computer first came out. But then 100 years later, they're cheap as chips. So
yeah. Exactly.
It's just it's
yeah,
crazy,
it's scary. I mean, they can copy Freddie Mercury's voice and turn him into a song now, which is creepy. It's so creepy. But before we get into a few questions on your business mindset and stuff that I want to pick your brains on, I want to ask you about a couple of experiences that I found. One of them was your skydives, but we covered that earlier. But the next thing I want to ask about is a funny one, which is the experience at Karen's Diner.
Oh, okay.
So Karen's Diner, for those who don't know, it went viral for the fact that you go in and they basically treat you like shit. They treat you like chewing gum on the bottom of the shoe. So what was that experience like? Why did you go and what was the experience like?
It's really strange because it was Nina who wanted to go. We actually went for my birthday. We happened to be in Manchester for my birthday. Paul was speaking at an event and that's where Karen's Diner is. So we let's book Karen's Diner for a laugh for my birthday. And it was Nina who had brought Karen's Diner to my attention. She'd watched videos about it and thought it was hilarious. And then when we got there, she hated it. She hated being. I could tell she was furious.
What, just because the way they spoke, or?
Well, she was furious, and she wanted to give it back, but she was scared because she didn't. Obviously, she's young and she hasn't got the quick kind of crack and humour. But so she actually didn't like it. I thought it was hilarious, and I really admire how talented they must be for that quick humour.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, and they put a hat on you with like a slogan on, and ours were quite because we had the kids. They were quite. I mean, they were pretty rude, but not that bad. There was a group of ladies on the table who must have been on I don't know if they were on a hen do or something. And some of the things on their hats, I just thought, how do people's minds work? I'm not going to say them because you might get cancelled. Some of the stuff.
You can say whatever you want on my podcast.
Okay, so one of them was, I wank tramps off in the park. And I was like, what? Where does your brain go? Like, how do you come up with this kind of stuff? And I just found it quite.
What was yours?
I can't remember.
Because I was Max's like something like still wets the bed or something. It's like
something
it's breastfed,
like
something like that.
Yeah.
It was something like that.
Yeah. I don't know, but it was, I remember coming out of there thinking these people are actually really intelligent to be able to be so quick-witted to come up with stuff, or a little bit warped to be able to
probably a bit
like,
of both.
Where does your mind go about wanking tramps off in the park? Like, where do you get that from? Because my brain would never go down there, like not in a million years.
I'm gonna steal that one though. I always remember I used to love watching The Mighty Boosh when I was younger.
Oh, yeah.
He spray paints his things as Howard will bum you silly for loose change. I thought it was a great line. I've always used that. What was the food like? Because I've heard it's pretty lackluster. I've heard it's pretty basic. You go to be abused.
You literally, it comes in a basket, and it was like burger and chips.
Yeah.
The food, but it was an experience. I definitely recommend it as long as you can keep you cool and just take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the next one I want to ask you about is one of the reasons why we had to push this podcast back is that you got a trip to Auschwitz. So I'm just curious, like, how did you find that whole experience while you were there?
So it's obviously something that something I've always been interested in. But what we actually took the kids, which I was a little bit like, I don't know. Max is quite mature, and Nina's mature for her age. Don't get us wrong, but at the time she was only 9, and I was like, but she got really into it. When she was learning about World War II at school, she got really into World War II, and particularly Jewish people. She read Anne Frank's diary, and she got really into the the kind of persecution of it's strange that a 9-year-old can get. I would even say she was obsessed a little bit with it. Not so much the Holocaust and stuff, but just she couldn't get her head round why somebody would be
that horrible,
so against a group of people. And she got quite obsessed with it, so that's why we decided to go. And it was what made me kind of take stock a little bit was, in my head, it was ages ago, like World War II was ages ago, and when we got there, the building still felt really new, and I was like, oh, my junior school was older than this building. Like it wasn't a lifetime ago. It wasn't even a lifetime ago. There's people who are still alive today. But in me head, it's always been ancient history.
Yeah. It's like the pyramids being built.
Yeah, it was. And then when I got there, I was like, holy shit, how did this happen? Not that long ago. How was it even possible that this could happen in this lifetime?
Yeah.
And that upset us a lot. And then made us think, shit, like I went down a bit of a rabbit hole with that. Could this happen again? Like how?
Well,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you never know. Well, there's the rehabilitation schools in China for like I think they just put loads of races in there and stuff. Have you seen those?
No, I haven't.
It's scary that like they just put them all in there, and then there was a documentary that did it, but the camera crew were followed constantly, told where they could go, and just spoke to only who they said they could speak to. And I was like, this is dodgy.
Yeah.
But I was like, it still happens in parts of the world sometimes, just because we can't see it, and it's not, we're not reading textbooks about it. It probably still happens, but Auschwitz.
Well, nobody knew about that at the time.
Well, yeah, true. True.
I mean, that was kept quiet. So, I mean, very, very upsetting. And I remember seeing all the. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been, but the little shoes.
I went just before you. Yeah. Because I literally, I think I came back and then spoke to you, and you're like, oh, I'm going as well. I was like, mental as how it is.
So really upsetting, but I mean, I wouldn't recommend it for all kids. I think my kids were equipped for it, and I did tell them it was going to be upsetting, and also the size of it, the what's it called?
Birkenau, yeah.
How big's that?
It's huge. Well, you walk on for ages, don't you?
Vast, and it again in my head, it wasn't. I mean, it was millions, and in my head, it was just like maybe a couple of thousand. Just the scale of the whole thing just blew my mind.
And the systems in place to have it done. I mean, the one thing that I think got me was, do you know what's funny? I expected to feel more when I saw the suitcases and the hair and the shoes. And yeah, that was harrowing, but the thing that really stood out to me was, I don't know, did you get the tour guide through? Did he take you or did you go yourself to just wander?
No, we did go through, but I couldn't hear him very well, to be honest with you.
We couldn't. Honestly, it was hard to hear anyone, but they ended the tour in Birkenau with this hut that was apparently filled with just women.
Right.
Because the women were essentially useless to the Nazis, they just left them in there to die. But it was just this wooden hut that was boiling hot in the summer, freezing in the winter, full of rats. They got no food, and they were just locked in there. Like there was these wooden bunks, if you can call them bunks.
Did it have "Help Me" written?
I'm not sure. Maybe
on the what's it called?
Just the
just like the cement
stuff,
had help me written on. Honestly, it was just horrendous. You don't, until you actually go there. I don't know whether it's a like a self-preservation thing. You don't really think about it until, and then when you realise the scale of it, it's just crazy. So definitely an experience. And another thing where, when I was talking about showing me kids the world, obviously it's not necessarily an example that I want to set, but just opening their minds to things and making them understand. I mean, how typical example of what not to do, isn't it? Yeah.
Max, don't kill 6 million Jews. If you hate someone, keep it under wraps.
Yeah. But I mean, history's important, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's part of understanding of history. So kind of, it's a social thing, isn't it? It's a values and a
Well, I got just as obsessed, I think, as Nina with World War II when I was in school, and I even bought Hitler's book, which is just, I read like a few chapters and I was like, this is just bollocks. Yeah. It's just ramblings. It's not even a book. It's just ramblings. And I was like, I'm not reading this anymore. So I think I gave it to a charity shop. Good luck whoever got it. I couldn't imagine seeing that in a charity shop.
But we also went Poland. Sorry, well, obviously when we were in Poland, we went round there's the Jewish quarters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And Nina knew more about Jewish people than I did. We went into one of the synagogue things, and she was saying they use this for that, and I was like, how do you know this? Like it's just
crazy,
because she's a bit like Paul, gets obsessed with things. If something sparks that interest, she just goes down a rabbit hole with it, which is great, but then also a little bit obsessive as well. Like,
it depends on what, you know what I mean? Because it could work out that it's a good thing. You never know, she might be working here in future. You never know. Have her own podcast. I would love to say, because I saw the episode where Paul interviewed Max and Nina. It's like, this is great. This is brilliant. I absolutely loved it.
I'd love to do that again with him, actually. So, I mean, Max is taller than me now. He's a man. That's crazy. It's crazy how quickly they grow up. But yeah.
Do it, I'll come on the cameras. I want to sit in with me popcorn and watch that. Just the four of you going at it with discussions about outfits and stuff would be great. But so the final part I want to end on is I just want to pick your brains about a few business things, a few questions that I saw crop up around. So I wonder if you can answer these for us. So I'm curious, in your opinion, what is it that lies between a business idea and a really successful business? So what's in the gap between them?
Implementation, I think. I think there's a lot of people who are very creative and have great ideas. And for example, Paul is extremely creative, has genius ideas, but isn't able to do the boring work, the implementation, the step-by-step, the building out, the sit down and create the system, create the process. That is so boring to him that by the time the thing's created, he's moved on to the next idea. And I think there's so many entrepreneurs who are entrepreneurs because they're creative, but don't have the focus, or they can't sit down and actually see through a project because of their creativeness. By the time they've got halfway through, they're on to the next thing, and they're on to the next thing. And I think if that's what you are like, then you need a team around you. You need people around you who are capable of sitting down and doing the boring implementation. Otherwise, it's the business idea hasn't had time to get legs. By the time you think that it's failing, but the reality is you haven't spent the time building the foundations. And you've got bored before you've seen the fruits of the,
So more of a wantrepreneur, I think they call it, don't they? Yeah. You want to do it, you've got the ideas. I think, is it important in your opinion to have someone who comes up with the ideas and someone who's very sharp with implementation? Do you think that's like a good parent to start with?
Yes, I do. I think I'm probably a little bit, so naturally, I would say I'm quite risk adverse. And if I could probably come up with an idea, but my brain would automatically go to all of the things that could go wrong, so let's not do it. Whereas Paul's just like, he's probably the opposite scale. He doesn't even, the thought that it could go wrong or not succeed doesn't even enter his mind. It's just like, I think having somebody who is a balance of ideas and implementation and risk management and all that kind of stuff is important for. It's a bit like there's this thing, a book that I'm reading at the minute. What's it called? The Road Less Stupid. It's
sounds good.
And it's about the fact that it's like taking the time to sit down and ask yourself the difficult questions. Whereas a lot of entrepreneurs are so fast and so turning things around that they don't actually think about. It's called the four hats of business. So there's the creator, there's the operator, so the person who sits in your business and does the things, and then there's the business owner who is the orchestra. They're the orchestra, so you do that and you do that, and they make everything run smoothly. And then there's the board who is sole purpose is to make the business survive and to mitigate risk and that kind of thing. Paul's Paul is the ideas guy, and I'm probably everybody.
You're everybody.
Else. I'm everybody else. But I think if people don't have an awareness of the fact that just because you've got a good idea doesn't mean that you're a good business person. There's lots of skills involved in running a business. And I don't think everybody's good at all of the skills, and they shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. That's why you can probably only get to a certain level on your own without having a team around you mm-hmm. to run the things that you're not good at. Like even accounts and things. If you don't, you could. There's loads of famous rich people who've had a great idea and then they've been shit with money and they've filtered it all away and they've gone bankrupt. That's because they haven't had the right people around them.
If you look at anyone who gets off the lottery, who wins off the lottery as well, don't know what to do with it, spend it all, and they're back to working on Monday.
Mm-hmm. So I think having an awareness of what you're good at and being totally able to go, I'm not good at that, I'm going to outsource that, I'm going to delegate that, I need somebody else who enjoys that stuff that I don't like, and being able to kind of build the right team around people around you is the difference between having a good idea and having a successful business.
Nice. That's the TikTok clip right there. Yeah. So how do you pick and choose who to work with, both with people that you work with within the business and also clients as well? Because this is something a lot of people don't understand, is actually having quality leads coming through, having quality people come in and deciding, actually, I don't want to work with you, or I do want to work with you. What's your process of cutting them out?
Well, experience of knowing who's a good fit and who's not. I think after you've had your fingers burned quite a lot, you learn actually these type of people aren't a great fit. The people who want a deal are normally the people who fuck you over the most.
Who try and haggle, you mean? Or
who try to haggle, or who want to extract all your value. So like, oh, and can I have this on top, and can I have that on top? I think we do quite a good job in terms of messaging, and Paul's kind of he talks strictly no bullshit. He swears. He doesn't pretend to be somebody he's not, so that when people come through the door, they know exactly what they're getting. Yeah. We have company values, so no bullshit is one of them. We do what we said you would do. You've probably seen the T-shirts. The certain things that all of the staff within our, like those, do what we said we do. We lead by example. We're strictly no bullshit. We have company values, and everyone in the business is aware of them. And in terms of like who we work with, like in terms of like businesses and partnerships and things like that, I just think you deal with people who you get on with. I think you have a kind of a gut instinct. And I don't think it's always great to lead with your gut, but I think it's a gut, people who you don't feel like you have to pretend, who you don't dread, when you're like, oh, I've got to meet with these to do, like people who are similar to you and have similar values. Trust is quite an important thing to me, and if I'm probably, Paul always says that I'm really negative, but I'm very untrusting in business in general, because I think it comes from my solicitor background, because you see where things have gone wrong in litigation, and you see like, you should have had a contract. Why did you not have a contract? Why are you doing what? Do you know what I mean? So
you've seen a side that not many people have. Exactly.
I see. Coming from that background, I can see what happens when things go wrong. I can see what happens when people fuck each other over, and I suppose I'm kind of wired in that way. So I'm probably less trusting than other people. But I generally get a feel for people, I think. And just lead with your gut, but also your brain in terms of
nice.
Get a contract, even if that.
Moral of the story is get a contract. Make people sign shit. Also, obviously make people pay as well, because deposits, anything like that. Because if they don't pay, they don't value it.
Well, that's 100%. The thing. And I think that's when people want a deal, it's an alarm bell. Where they're not valuing what you do, and if they're trying to haggle, they don't see enough value in it. You're already on the bottom foot in terms of having to prove that the thing that you've got is worth what you've asked for already. So it's always an alarm bell if somebody's asking for a deal, I think.
Yeah. So if someone was to come to you for coaching, what could they expect to learn, to go through? What's the process that you take someone through when they sign up to your coaching?
So the coaching that I do is really just come from my experience of working with Paul and his clients, and I feel like a lot of people that Paul's worked with in the past. I mean, he's got a big following in the fitness industry from his background in that, and I feel like a lot of people are taught how to make more money all of the time, marketing, funnels, all of that stuff. They're never taught the basics of business. They don't get taught the accounts. I know it's boring. That's why they don't want to learn it as well.
Yeah.
But I think you only get to a certain point in business where you need to start learning these things and how to take on staff and how to delegate and how to do accounts and how to analyze things and how to set KPIs. And there comes a point where to grow your business and scale your business, you need to know those business. Need to have those business skills as opposed to just being a great marketer and marketing your way to more money.
Yeah.
So so my coaching is basically teaching people once they get to that point, teaching them how to scale their business from a business skills point of view. What else they need to know to be able to increase their capacity to serve more people. That's what I teach. And I think the problem that we've got is a lot of business courses teach bullshit that you don't need to know. Like I looked at enrolling on an MBA and there was so much bullshit. Like international trading and like, yeah, if you want to work in a big corporate environment, that might be useful. Yeah. But for small businesses, like our small businesses in our world, that is totally irrelevant. Yeah. So what I really want to kind of put together probably next year going into 2024 is I want to do like a strategy school or a real business a business school. What you really need to know about business as a small business that's not marketing. So because there's loads of people who are really good at marketing and then don't know any of the other stuff. And I think that's how me and Paul kind of complement each other because he's really good at teaching marketing and that kind of stuff. But taking on staff, delegating stuff, accounts, all of that stuff, people aren't teaching it from a real life point of view. And I think it's definitely a gap in the market and something that people need to know.
Yeah, because it is all about just like everyone thinks that it's the logo, which is what I love. Everyone's like, if I get the perfect logo, my business will succeed. It's like the logo should be it's important, but it's not like you need to get everything else first. Like, how are you going to make the money?
If you're doing it right, you don't even need a logo because it's about your brand, isn't it? And you could be your brand. You don't even. Tony Robbins hasn't got a logo, has he?
I have no idea. It's probably just a T and an R. You
can probably think of some really successful people who haven't got a logo. Yeah. So
I don't know Gary V's logo. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You should have asked him that when you met him. That's why you should have been like, mate, have you got a logo? I'll make one for you. It's fine.
Yeah. So yeah, I think there's nobody teaching what's really important, and I think the problem that a lot of people have is that it's not exciting either. No. So a lot of people don't really want to learn it, but that's because a lot of the way it's taught is boring and it's bullshitty. So I'm trying to find my own niche in terms of like I teach you what you need to know in order to scale your business and make more money from a real life point of view. So it's not dry and it's not corporate-y and it's not bullshit.
Yeah, you're filtering out the fluff. Yes. All the stuff that's packed in to make it sound official and stuff. Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%.
Real life experience, like running a real small business. I mean, our business is 7 figures. It's still classed as a small business. I've got friends who've got businesses with like 20 odd members of staff, still a small business. Mm-hmm.
When does it stop being labelled a small business? Like how big do you have to be?
Billions, I think. It's mental, isn't it? But like I think probably most people are classed as small businesses, and have things like staff that people just don't teach you how to do that.
Yeah.
How to decide when to take on your first member of staff, and actually I need some help, but what do I need them to do? People don't even know where to start with those kind of things. So yeah, hopefully people will find it helpful.
Yeah, 100%. Well, it's like you said, it's like people don't understand a lot of the work that goes into the boring stuff. Like, people have said to me, oh wow, it must be great to have a podcast. I'm like, yeah, but it eats up every fucking night of my life. Like, I go home and it's like, each podcast is like an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. That takes me nearly triple the time to edit it. Yeah. Then I've got to do the uploading, thumbnails, description, reels, subtitling. It's time constant. I didn't realize when I started how much work it would be. Mm-hmm. I don't mind though, because I love it. I love doing it.
Well, that's the thing. I think if you love it, you've got to love it though, haven't you? Because you wouldn't do it if you didn't.
I'd fucking cry if I didn't, honestly. Have you ever subtitled any videos before? No,
you know, but I know that obviously everyone says, oh, just use the automated subtitles. You can't, particularly with Paul. You
can't with the Geordie accent. Like, I do a lot of Luke stuff as well, and it messes. It doesn't understand a word of what anyone's saying. It's bad, especially if you're northern. Maybe it's more southern that understands. If you're more northern, you've got no chance. You're gonna have to edit that shit forever.
Yeah,
100%. So Lesley, listen, where can people find you personally? Where can they follow your stuff, and where can they go to find your coaching?
Follow me on Instagram, which I think I'm Lesley Mort.
I think that's right. I'll put it at the bottom of the screen, regardless. Yeah.
Follow me on Instagram, Facebook. That's the main thing. Click on my link in me link tree if you want to find out more about what I do. Yeah, that's it really.
Amazing. Thanks, Lesley, and thanks again for letting us use the studio as well. It's amazing to have it on.
And it didn't have to go anywhere. So
yeah, exactly. I can't do exactly. Yes. Well, you're only 10 minutes down the road, so it's fine. But listen, guys, thank you very much for listening. Obviously, go follow Lesley. Go check out all her work and stuff as well. And if you are a small business and you want to be slightly medium, is there a medium business? Is that a thing?
A bigger business.
A bigger business. You want to be a medium to big size business? Go check out our work and definitely subscribe to our coaching. So cheers, guys, and be sure to leave a 5-star review. None of this 4-star bullshit. I hate when people are just like, I didn't like that bit, 4 stars. I can't stand it. So 5 stars or just leave.
Or just don't do anything.
Just leave. So thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you all in the next episode.
Thank you very much.